I remember that day that a lady came over and spent a long time talking to my parents, and when they were done talking, she came over and grabbed me by the hand, looked back to see if my parents were going to come, and took me away from her. They stood there and watched me go. So at 5 years old, I was put to work to maybe earn one meal a day. I was physically abused, verbally abused, no schooling.
That's still happening all over the country. More than 300,000 children live as rest-of-ex, they call them, but it's really modern slavery.
1 in every 10 children is a slave in Haiti.
We began opening schools in communities where there were no schools or very limited access to education. When we go into the hospital, we always pass through the maternity ward. Almost always we encounter abandoned babies. In Guatemala, if you go by the United Nations definition of what an orphan is, there are about 370,000 orphans. The needs are so overwhelming on every front.
The actual genocide in the 1970s was so thorough, and it's the only time that an entire country has been turned into a concentration camp, and the borders are sealed, and the entire population are subject to slave labor, brutality, and execution.
That genocide created a vacuum, a moral vacuum here. And so what ended up happening is that in Khmer culture, women are not valued to the same degree that men are. So it's a very vicious cycle, and that's what makes it where I think sexual exploitation here continues, because there are limited options for these young women who are coming from the province.
There is no social security in Uganda. Usually the seniors look after their children, and most of their children have died. They have to pay bills, and without any source of income, they cannot meet their medical bills.
They feel unappreciated. They feel like they have spent their whole life trying to do things for other people and trying to help, and in the evening of their lives, no one cares about them.
We've seen so much need here. We wanted to make impact. We wanted to help. And God suddenly started dropping vision in our heart. I believe that Haiti has been called to become a leader to the nations, an example. So we want to raise up godly leaders that will impact their own life, their family, their communities, and in return Haiti will change.
The whole idea of opening an orphanage emerged from the Guatemalan people. They were reading in the book of James. These brand new believers were reading from the book of James, and they were saying, here it says that we're to care for widows and orphans. And they're saying there's orphans everywhere, and what is our role?
I was involved in building clinics, immunization programs, hospital building, development of ambulance programs. And then we moved into agricultural development, literacy development, all those kind of things. I didn't get into the child exploitation and the human trafficking issues with young women until much later. And since then we've been working heavily in that field to deal with young people that have been trafficked and sold into sex slavery.
Our vision is to see other persons living a dignified and fulfilled lives.
Right now we have about 1,000, almost 1,000 seniors that we take care of. We had grand plans in our heads and we wanted to build a health center, we wanted to build an office. We had a dream in our head. We had something that we knew could happen.
We don't have the expertise here in country to give us the plan, the construction, the way we want to build.
When you first go into a country and you're working on a very limited budget and you're looking for volunteers and anyone who is willing to give, you're willing to accept it, but sometimes then you end up with this mishmash of just kind of thrown together stuff and not really professionally laid out.
I've seen lots of construction projects that weren't well thought out, and therefore it cost a lot of extra money to redo things that weren't done properly the first time.
The engineers, the architects, they're all gone, they're all killed. And so rebuilding from there is very, very difficult.
If it hadn't been for the EMI team at that time, it would have taken us a while to even think about getting funding, because it helped us. When you have drawings, it's an easier discussion. You're talking about something that is right there on paper, professional work done. And so it was just amazing.
And that's why, I mean, the EMI team is vital to us, to come in with the expertise to actually design a building for us that is purpose-built, that functions the way it should function in terms of our project needs. That's not available to us here at all.